boiled them into a simple pair of words: be kind. He said, in your life, I'm quite sure that you do get a tiny bit of time alone. Let's say it's 10 minutes a day in the shower. If you spent 5 of those 10 minutes in the shower simply meditating on being kind to other people, you would be exemplifying in full all of the teachings of Buddha. But, he said, that's not easy. It takes, like I said, a lot of fortitude to be able to do the same thing in the same way every single day. We are made of meat and we are grossly imperfect, and there's a lot going on in our brains. Our minds wander and our bodies ache. This is the noise that you need to shut out. In sports, they say you've got to get out of your head. A pool hustler's job is to put you in your head. This is something else I learned from the hustlers. Any serious study of pool hustlers, and I have undergone a fairly serious one, reveals that the truly great hustlers, Wimpy Lassiter, Minnesota Fats, all hustled at things other than pool as well. They hustled at golf. They hustled at tennis, backgammon, dice. Now, does this mean that pool hustlers are just really good at all these other games? It doesn't. They did this because sinking a ball, making a putt, dropping a shot inside the line, and rolling dice are only a small part of what competing at those games is all about. So I want you to picture yourself on a golf course. You're about to sink an easy putt, 4 feet away, and you and your friends have bet 20 bucks on this hole. If you win 20 bucks, and one of them says, how would you like to sweeten the pot? And you look at the putt, it seems like it's pretty easy, and you say, how much? And they say, $200. You think, okay. That's a lot of money. I mean, I can afford it, but it's an easy putt. I don't need to afford it because I'm about to make $200. And then you start thinking, well, between friends, it's also a lot of money. How is he going to react if I make it? How am I going to react if I don't? And now, all of a sudden, you're not making a putt. You're making $200, and you miss the putt. What happened is that you just got hustled. He broke your rhythm. He knows your head. He knows your limits, and he knows what stakes will throw you off your game. A hustler knows for themselves that no matter what the stakes, they can always shut off the noise in their head and simply play the game. They don't even have to play it very well. They only have to play it better than you. It's not about skill, it's about the stakes. The greatest pool player of the first half of the 20th century, Willie Mosconi, he said that in order to play pool at this level, you need to be willing to spot your grandmother. You need to be willing to spot your grandmother 49 points in a game that's a race to 50 points. You need to give her a 49-point advantage, and then you need to be willing to beat her. That's the kind of cold-blooded thing that a hustler requires. We like to think about competition being pure skill, but that's rarely the case. It's not only the car against the tracks. It is really about the stakes. It's about the competition between the people. The hustler is someone who discovered early on that the higher the stakes get, the hotter they get, the cooler they get. So, I have one more anecdote about a hustler. A hustler is someone who goes to the track with 10 bucks, parlays it over the course of the day into 1,600 bucks, loses it all in the last race, and goes home thinking, not bad, I only lost 10 bucks. That's the way they think of stakes, and we can't. I think that there's something interesting about human nature and the pursuit of excellence that I learned in that. The thing that we get really good at, the thing that we choose to dedicate our lives to, the thing we spend our time doing, is the thing that has the same effect on us as money and stakes do on a hustle. It's the thing that we get cooler when push comes to shove rather than hotter. It's the thing in which we're able to shut out the noise. I was a special effects model maker and a rigger for 15 years before Mythbusters. And I can't describe to you how many times I would have spent weeks building a custom little mechanical arrangement that's, who knows, laundry detergent's got to dance or chocolate has to walk across the floor. And I'm sitting there rigging it while an entire film crew is watching me. And, they're like, it's not going to work. And they cost $4,000 a minute. The pressure is on. In the film industry, they call it being in the barrel. And I learned early on in the film industry that I loved doing this because in those moments, I didn't get freaked out. I didn't panic. I got cooler. I got more relaxed. I was able to boil the problem down to its essence. Okay, It doesn't matter that this crew costs this much money. It doesn't matter that the director is angry. What matters is they need X, and I can deliver X or Y or Z, and here are the options. Special effects was the first time in an employment situation that I found I could do that kind of mental exercise. I found it in sculpture, but not under that kind of pressure. And I found that pressure kind of intoxicating. It was the first thing that wasn't a hobby that I pursued excellence in. So where do you go when you start pursuing excellence in something? Well, you go deeper. I saw it in sculpture when I was doing that in my early 20s, and I definitely saw it in effects when I started doing it seriously in my late 20s and early 30s. The better you get at something, the deeper you need to go in order to do it to your satisfaction. What it means is that you start seeing, eventually, the unique thing that you bring to that discipline. Writers call it the voice. They call it your voice. And the more you learn about your voice, the more you seek to find that genuine core, the authenticity. You raise the stakes because you want to go deeper. You want to understand more. You end up, after years of studying pool, the table, the balls, the opponents, the geometries, and the strategies, and all the other noise, you end up alone, confronting yourself, banging up against your own preconceptions, getting them out of the way to find something important and universal. Ralph Waldo Emerson says in Self-Reliance that to know that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all, that is genius. He also says, in the same freaking paragraph, it slays me, in every work of genius we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty. So everything that we might pursue excellence in, our hobbies, our careers, our interests, our relationships, they are effectively, to my way of thinking, a spiritual practice. And more than a spiritual practice, the only important practice. It's the method by which we get past the petty renderings of our preconceptions and coping mechanisms to a deeper truth about ourselves and those around us, a collective truth. This is the lesson that great artists, athletes, and musicians have to tell us. And here's the rub. This is the dirty trick of the whole thing. The better you get at it, the harder it gets to do. That is to say, the deeper you go, the more you know how much you don't know, and the more you realize how deep you have to go to get to that authenticity. Getting better doesn't make it easier. It makes it harder, but it makes it yours, and it makes it you, and that's where the satisfaction lays. The painter Francis Bacon says that anyone with any dedication, training, and some modicum of intelligence can get themselves to 90% with any skill. But that the most interesting part of it is what happens in that last 10%. That's where we become ourselves. Thank you very much. All right, let's talk.
First of all, I want to, on behalf of UWM, thank you for coming here. This is the hand of all the students.
Thank you very much. That is the warmest welcome I've had in a long time. I really appreciate it. I am not blowing anything up tonight. Oh, come on, you think I called the fire department? They don't let me fly with that stuff.
So, Adam, going to more about the Mythbusters, the show that you co-host. To many of your fans, you guys, when I say you guys, I mean you and Jamie, have the ideal job. You get to play hard, build amazing contraptions, blow things up, use fire rockets. How did you get to become the host or the co-host of Mythbusters?
In early 2000s, I had been working at Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas's special effects company, for about 5 years, and I was working on the Matrix sequels, Revolutions and Reloaded. I'm really sorry about that. The special effects are great, and for the record, so they are also for episodes 1 and 2, but I need to watch them in French with subtitles because they're so terrible. That's my technique for watching terrible movies. Watch them in another language with subtitles, because really crappy dialogue is somehow bearable when you're reading it. It doesn't work on Prometheus. I'm sorry. In early 2000s, and Jamie got a call from this production company in Australia about sending in a demo reel for the show called Mythbusters. And he thought that this sounded interesting, and that he ought to explore it, but he didn't really think that he could. Sorry, this is strange having this table between us. So I'm just going to move it back so you can. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. All right. So he thought, I don't know if I could host a whole show on my own, but maybe I know someone who's a bit of a ham. And he called me up, and so just before he called me, about 3 months before, I had just done the worst job I'd ever done, this terrible, terrible thing. And you can look at my story on it, it's on YouTube. It's from a Maker Faire about 4 years ago. And this job went really, really badly, but I got paid really well for it. And I went and I bought the brand newest Apple laptop, the Pismo, which was the very first laptop designed specifically for digital video editing. And I bought a Sony TRV-10 digital video camera, and I had been playing around making little movies in my house. And so when Jamie called me, I went over to his shop with this camera, and his assistant had another camera, and we shot for a couple of hours. And I came back to my house, and I cut a 14-minute demo reel. I specifically remember, as I started to digitize the footage, I was like, okay, play, record, and start to digitize an hour and a half of footage, and I looked up and I stopped, and I'm just watching Jamie talk, and I was like, holy crap, the camera loves Jamie. I would not have caught that, and I didn't even know what that meant until that moment when I saw him. I was like, wow, he drives me crazy to listen to him, but he looks great on camera. So we sent in a demo reel, and they had been trying to cast this show for the better part of a year. They had gone international, Australia, Europe, United States. They hadn't found anybody. When we sent in our demo reel, they not only loved it, but they sent the crew out 2.5 weeks later, and we have not stopped filming the show since. It was very immediate. And in January we celebrate our 10th anniversary on the air. Yeah.
So out of all the myths that you have busted, or that you have even tried, what were the most interesting results, or the most counterintuitive?
Well, that happens all the time. The counterintuitive results happen constantly, because our intuition seems to be perennially terrible. I will say there's this one we did years ago. There's a myth about a guy who gets really drunk at a party, and he knows he can't drive home, but he only has his car. So he convinces a friend of his who's blind to drive him home. Figuring the blind guy's just going to get a ticket for driving while blind. Won't destroy his life like a DUI would destroy his life. So we tested it on a closed police evac course. We blindfolded ourselves and got behind the wheel while the other gave directions, which is really fun on a closed course. And then we got a blind guy, and the blind guy turned out to be better at driving than either of us, because he had no preconceptions. The blind person, he puts his hand on the wheel, and you tell him to turn left, he just turns left until you say stop, and then he stops. We close our eyes, and the moment we close them, we immediately map what we think is the shape of the world on this blackness, and then we try and deal with it as if that map is accurate, which, as we've shown on several other episodes, it's totally not accurate. So we lean and we drive to the wrong direction. So anyway, that then culminated in us going down to this location in Monterey called, we call it Zombie Town, because it's like a whole military suburb that's closed off and rotting, and it's terrifying. It feels like The Walking Dead. And Jamie got really drunk on some Maker's Mark. We had covered over the label, but that distinctive wax on the neck, the Maker's Mark people were really pissed off about it. And maybe they were pissed off because Jamie decided to sit and lie down in the gutter while he got drunk. So Jamie got drunk, and Jamie got in the back seat, and our blind guy got in the front seat. And something we completely did not expect happened. which is that Jamie's directions for the blind guy made the blind guy drive like someone who was drunk. Like weaving all over the road and go really, really slow.